Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I am making a birthday card where I step out of my comfort zone by using some pattern paper. So for this card I am using the Hello Sunshine remix from Lawn Fawn, and I decided to take out two of those pattern papers to use on my card. So first of all I decided to cut a rectangular A2 size panel to cover my card base. And next up I decided to use the other pattern paper to make a lovely frame around my scene. So here I'm trimming down my panel to A2. And then I am taking this scalloped circle from Lawn Fawn, and I'm also die cutting it out of a piece of pattern paper. So now that that's done, I decided to cut this frame out of Strathmore Bristol Smooth. And this way I have a second frame so that I can lift up the frame that I die cut from the pattern paper, and I also have a circle where I can start on my scene. So first of all, I am gluing down these two frames on top of each other with some liquid glue from Lawn Fawn. Next up, I am deciding how my scene is going to look. So this is going to be a birthday card, so I decided to take a swan from the Swan Soirée, and I am going to put a crown on top of her because I am making this card for a lovely woman who really loves ducks and swans and stuff like that, so no better stamp set than this one. So now that I have decided about my layout, I am going to stamp it out onto Strathmore Bristol Smooth. For the little pond, I decided to use my Distress Oxide ink Tumbled glass, and then the other items I am going to stamp out with Gina K Design Amalgam ink. So now that my images are stamped out, I am going to color them in. I'm going to color it a bit different than I'm used to, because I'm not going to use my blender that often except for my swan. But what I did here was I added the darkest color and then I took a lighter color to mix these two up, create a nice blend, and then go onto the softer color. So the coloring is quite dark for using zigs because there is no blender or water involved. But I actually really liked it, so all these images were standing out from each other. And for the swan I did use my blender because I of course wanted to keep it really soft and light, but I wanted to create that shadow as well. So I took a light gray zig and then I used the blender to blend it out, and this way I created some shadow, some depth onto the swan. But for the rest I didn't choose the blender at all. I just used two colors of the same family. So now that everything is colored in, I can use the matching dies to cut it out, and then I can again start laying out my design and check whether it's good. So I decided to add some color on top of my scene. So I used my spun sugar for the sky to keep it really light but still add some color on top of it. And then after laying out my images, I decided to add a little bit of green on the bottom, because of course most of the times there is a bit of grass aside a pond, so I decided that this was a good idea to add. But first I am heat setting my sky that I created, and I'm also going to splatter some liquid stardust from Lawn Fawn on top of this to get it a bit more shiny, because of course it's a birthday card. So because everything needed to dry, I decided to stamp out my sentiment. And therefore I assembled some of the words in this stamp set, and I also took "It's Your Birthday" from, of course, the other released stamp set, Really High Five. And I'm stamping it out with the same black ink as my images, being the Gina K Design Amalgam ink. To adhere this panel on top of my card base, I used some permanent print adhesive roller, and then I laid it out as straight as possible. I took my frame and I added some liquid glue on the back, and then I placed it centered above the sentiment. So now back to my scene. I decided to use my heat gun once more for the liquid stardust to dry faster, and then I almost added a pond. But as I told you before, I used some greens, being crushed olive distress ink, on the bottom to make it a bit more complete. And then it was time to adhere everything, so I used a combination of liquid glue and also some thin foam squares from scrapbook adhesives. And then I just needed to trim off the excess pond, and I adhered it on top of my card panel. And that finishes off my card. I really hope that you like this card design. Using some adorable pattern paper from Lawn Fawn really got me out of my comfort zone, but they are so amazing in creating this lovely pattern paper, so why shouldn't I give it a go? Thank you so much for watching my video. I really appreciate it a lot. If you have any questions, please leave them down below and I will answer them as quick as possible, and hopefully I will see you next time. Bye!